A few weeks ago, somebody sent me this message.
Hi Mark, I think you've got an issue with your COUNTIFS function. You've got the arguments backwards. I'm pretty sure it's wrong.
The person who sent me this was quite astute because I had used COUNTIFS in a non-standard way. But was it wrong? Had it caused an error in my spreadsheet? That's what we're going to find out. So if you're ready, let's get started. Here we are in Excel and we're going to start with a standard usage of COUNTIFS. We have an item column and also a value column, though for this scenario we only need our item column. We're going to start by counting how many of each item we have. To get our list of items, we might use the sort function to sort in alphabetical order, and also unique to only get one instance of each item. I'll select the cells, close both brackets, commit that formula, and now we get Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, and Delta in alphabetical order. We now want to count how many times each of those items appear. We'll type equals COUNTIFS. We could also use COUNTIF for this. We have our criteria range, which is our list of items, and we want to check where they are equal to the item of alpha. I'll close the bracket, commit that formula, and we can see that alpha appears 4 times. Now this cell here is a spill range. That means we have one formula which is returning multiple values. So instead of just referencing G4, we can reference G4 hash, and that will return all of those items. So that's a reasonably standard usage of COUNTIFS. It tells us how many times each item exists. But what happens if we flip around our arguments and also our logic? In that scenario, it tells us whether an item exists. Here in cell H4, you can see our first argument, criteria range, is our long list of items. Then our second argument of criteria is our short list of items. It counts how many times each of those items exists, and it exists 4 times. So if we think about the function in this way, we could use equals COUNTIFS, opening bracket. We could set our criteria range according to a short list of just alpha and bravo. That's our criteria range, and then we could set our criteria to our long list. What's going to happen in that scenario? I'll close the bracket and calculate, and it now tells us whether our item of Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, or Delta exists in the list. If it does, it returns a value of 1. We can see Alpha returns 1. If it doesn't, it returns a value of 0. And so you can see there that Charlie has 0. Now this is a 1 or a 0. If we wanted to return a true or a false, we could edit our formula and check whether it's greater than 0. We now get a true or false that tells us whether the item exists in our shorter list. Now another way to achieve this is using the XMATCH function. In cell E4, I'll type equals XMATCH, opening bracket. For the lookup value, we want to look up all of our items. We then have our lookup array, and we want to look up each of those items from our existence list. I'll close that bracket at the end and calculate. This now returns a 1, a 2, or an error. Now this occurs because alpha is the first item in our list, therefore it returns 1. Bravo is the second item and returns 2. Charlie does not exist in our list, so it returns the #NA error. Now if we want to perform an existence check, we can wrap this in the isNumber function. IsNumber, opening bracket, closing bracket, and when we calculate, we once again get a true or a false value. Now what happens if we have multiple items in our existence list? So let's suggest that we have Bravo twice. When we commit that, it still returns true or false. It doesn't count how many times each item existed in the list. If we go back to our COUNTIFS, we could achieve that by removing the greater than 0. And when we calculate that, you can see that Bravo now exists twice in our list. And that's it. That is the reverse COUNTIFS method. Rather than counting how many times something occurs, we want to reverse those arguments and find out whether that item even exists in our list. Now, this is a great technique if we need to compare two lists and find out if they contain the same items or if items are duplicated. Now, if you like this video and learned something new, then why not subscribe and get notifications so you don't miss any of our future videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.